Hey everyone, this is Zan, and welcome to Dominion 6 at a glance. Today we'll talk about the new nation, Late Age Pyrene. They are a feudal kingdom ruled by decadent half-breed demon nobility and the church. They have a massive focus on blood and glamour magic with powerful capital-only half-demon knights. The Late Age Pyrene roster uses Becrity units, which, although more expensive, less precise, and more vulnerable to magic, tend to have higher hit points, strength, fire and cold resistance, and dark vision when compared to other humans. Notably, the Perennial Knight is not that much more expensive than your traditional knight for the amount of bonuses that they get. They also have a very strong half-demon Sacred Knight, which can be a little bit vulnerable to Smite Demon from Priests due to their relatively low hit points, but excel in a lot of other areas and can take a bless very, very well. Pyrene does actually have a very good commander lineup in that their mundane commanders are very well defended and have decent leadership values, but you might not even need them because all of their fort mages can lead a decent amount of troops. You'll notice that they do have Holy Two Priests, which is going to be your only way of blessing your sacreds, because none of your Cambions, although sacred, themselves cannot cast blessing. They do not have holy paths. You'll notice otherwise that every single mage you have does have blood magic and thus can join Sabbats in a pinch. And you have a very strong focus on blood and glamour magic with very low paths everywhere else. You might think that there are some diversity issues in the nation, and especially early on that is true, but as the nation progresses, you can very easily resolve some of these issues. And the primary way you're going to do that is through their summons. So their actual national summons are just the Succubus and Incubus, but available much sooner. And these are going to help you seduce enemy mages or even throne defenders to help you break into other paths. Notably, they can do so even while you are under siege, your fort is under siege, or you are sieging an enemy fort, which is pretty nifty. They are kind of expensive in terms of blood slaves, especially in the late age, but the blood income on this nation is absolutely insane, so that might not be too big of an issue. Moving on to the non-national summons of the nation, we're going to start with the Cambion Progeny, which these are just results of your demonic seductions. And the paths that they get aren't really that much different from your national path. So they're just kind of happy little accidents. We're all going to want that Fire 3 one, as that's something you don't have easy access to, but otherwise, we don't really need them that much. And do know, although they are sacred here, Illwinter has mentioned that they are not supposed to be sacred. Outside of that, we're going to have the Great Hawk and the Black Hawk, which are going to be summoned by your Heir 2 Sorginas, and these are going to be your best upkeep-free patrol chaff, because as mentioned before, your units tend to be pricey and have bad precision. Now we're going to move on to some of the ways that you're going to break into other paths, and that's going to be the Blue Cap. So your Cambion King and Queen with that Earth 1 path can actually summon this, and that's automatically going to get you Earth 2, which you can use to craft Earth Boots. Put that back on your queen, and not only craft a bloodstone, which is super rare for an earth booster, but you can also then later summon gnomes. So in terms of diversity, you're going to very quickly get yourself into earth with Conjuration 5, and gnomes, I believe, are Conjuration 6 or 7, and then that will get you into high nature magic. And that's going to add 2 very strong paths to your nation. Outside of that, you're going to have premier access to almost all of the blood summons. Notably, I've added here Fiends of Darkness, which are going to provide you magic weapons that are good in the dark and can fly, and Demon Knights, which provide a fear aura and are generally very, very tanky. Not listed here, but through your Sorginas and some boosters, you can also get access to Storm Demons, which traditionally are very, very strong. So for a combined roster, this nation is going to rely a lot on their units early on, especially because they do tend to hit very hard, have a lot of hit points, and are resistant to some traditional early game magic through their fire and cold resistance. I'm also going to recommend a strong bless on the Cambion Knights, because they are very, very strong. The only thing to account for is the weakness to Smite Demon, because they have rather low hit points for how hard that easily accessible spell hits. Magic-wise, Blood and Glamour, although very strong in the late game, tend to be weaker early on, And even then, you do have some diversity issues. So as you progress through the game, you definitely want to find ways to break into other paths, and one of the easier ways for this nation to do that is through the demonic seduction, through the succubus and the incubus. And that definitely is going to be one way to keep every game with this nation very different. Keep in mind, too, that a very good target for seduction is going to be Throne Defender mages. Moving on to the recommended spells for the nation, I'll stick to Glamour and Blood as I don't know what paths you'll seduce your way into. Our first spell is going to be Summon Imps, and that should be the first research target. Since your capital produces blood slaves, you should be able to actually use this in early wars. From there, you can choose to continue up blood so that you can cast Bloodlust to give those imps and your sacred knights more strength, while also being able to cast Blood Burst, which is an area of effect nuke that is traditionally hard to cast, but Pyrene doesn't seem to have a problem. Or you can go up Alteration to cast either Twilight to buff your Glamour mages, or Nightfall to turn the lights and debuff your enemies. You can also go up Thaumaturgy and go grab Luck and Group Luck. As you know, those are some of my favorite defensive spells. After that, you might be using a lot of Blood Sabbaths, as every mage you own has blood magic, and some of your later spells that you can target while maintaining the Blood and Glamour focus is going to be Aura of Splendor to give awe to your units, Aura of Bewilderment, and then finally some of the best spells available to Glamour and Blood is going to be Charm and Leech. Charm will steal units to your side and commanders, maintaining their commander status and their items, and Leech is just an area of effect nuke that can be cast indefinitely as long as you have blood slaves, because it also restores fatigue and health every time you use it. For the pretender design of the nation, I recommend a strong Bless. So here I'm going to use the Baphomet because it's very inexpensive, and I'm going to focus on Enchanted Blood and Undying, because that's going to make your Cambion Knights more resilient to the Smite Demon attacks of enemy priests. By giving them an extra 10 hit points, Enchanted Blood is going to slowly regenerate those hit points as they lose them, as well as giving extra magic resistance. And do note that both of these affect Mount and Rider. After that, I've opted for additional strength to punch through some of the plate armored units in the late age, and magic weapons so that even as we go to the late game, these Cambion Knights are still going to fill a role by having their magical weapons. So personally, I think that the Undying Enchanted Blood combo is very, very strong and should always be used for this nation. Outside of that, you can opt for more resistances, you can opt for better stats, you can go for a Mage Bless, whichever you want. But I do mostly prioritize something that is going to make your Cambion Knights able to carry your early game. If you don't care about the paths and you have different access you might want, well, I recommend at least being able to craft Blood 5 items, as that's going to help you climb Blood better, and having Astral Earth so that you can later on summon Golems and give yourself some astral access either to prevent mind hunts or to cast anti-magic in battle. Optionally here, by doing the Undying method, I've also allowed myself to summon vampires later in the game should I want to break into death. For Pyrene's early gameplay, it's going to be mostly defined by throwing your Sacred Cavalry at your problems, and it probably is going to work. Gold is definitely a pain point, but make sure you prioritize your Sacred Knight unit recruitment over even your mages. Once you've expanded enough that you're able to maximize your capital, mage, and knight recruitment, you actually have two different routes you could take. You could start your first fort and boom as normal, or you can invest into foreign labs and jumpstart your Sorgina recruitment and begin your blood economy early by blood hunting those very same provinces. Since this is early blood hunting, keep in mind peasant assassinations. You want to hunt in your high Dominion candles where possible, as that reduces the chances of it happening. And if you can't help it, use your Cambion kings and counts in low candles and your countesses and queens in high candles, because they are not as combat capable as your mounted blood hunters. And for your patrol strength, I mentioned it before, but use your Air 2 Sorginas to summon Blackhawks for efficient upkeep for your patrol strength. As you move into the mid game, you want to make sure you are seducing either Throne Defenders or whichever mages your first war target is using with your Succubi and Incubi. Keep in mind that since they can scale walls, once you have a fort under siege, you can freely take your time seducing all the mages inside. Where possible, you want to try to expand your blood economy. And at some point during the mid game, you want to focus on completing that Earth and Nature minigame I outlined earlier with the blue caps and the gnomes. Finally, as you approach the late game, you want to make sure you never stop expanding and using your blood economy. Try to stick to 100 slaves in your bank at once. Any more than that, and you aren't summoning enough demons or crafting enough items. Any less than that, and your blood economy is small. Good ways to spend your blood slaves in the late game would be crafting blood boosters to cast Infernal Disease or Ritual of the Five Gates, 3 red seconds for additional citadels, and general combat magic like Leech, Life for a Life, or Infernal Prison. And always remember to blood sacrifice to push your Dominion, as that lowers enemy morale and makes them more susceptible to being seduced, or allows you to cast some sort of aggressive Dominion effect like the Looming Hell. And with that, thank you all for watching Late Age Pyrene at a glance. Please remember to leave a like and subscribe, or comment any cool strategies you've thought of or found out with the nation so far. That way we can share everything with everyone. Thanks again, and have a wonderful day.